Welcome to Whole Lot of Wolves, Season 2 of Episode 23. We're your hosts. I'm Joshua Buckley.
And I'm Paul LePage.
And we're delighted to welcome back one of our regulars, Mr. Justin Buznedo from Tennessee Wolves. How's it going?
Doing well, fellas. How are you guys?
Good. You surviving Snowmageddon up?
We've had a couple batches of it. It snowed every week since the beginning of the new year here, which is odd. So bread and milk sandwiches for everybody, you know.
Guys, this was a fun one.
Daniel Podence trying to feed it in behind for the run of Semedo. Semedo to the byline, fizzed across through, it comes to Aït-Nouri, tees it up for Moutinho, now for Neves, one touch, Neves to Khalid!
Oh, yeah.
Oh my word! Ruben Neves with a stunning curling finish into the bottom corner, and Wolves are back in front!
This game had a lot to unpack. Nice 2-1 win, quite exciting. Should have been 3-1, a little questionable call, but Paul, who was that flying the drone? That wasn't you, was it? Santa Lodge would be very disappointed if that was you.
The funniest thing I saw today was someone comment that it was Podence's private jet picking him up early. So kudos to whoever came up with that one. But
that's good.
Yeah,
that's genius.
I was fearing the worst. I was thinking it would be like that scene out of Batman when Bane comes and it's the American football stadium. I thought that was the initial what was going to go down. So quite relieved they got through all of that unscathed. And then the referee, his technology didn't work and we had stoppage time for injuries and you name it, pretty much everything that could have happened in that match pretty much happened.
It was almost a full 90 minutes in the first half.
Yeah.
By time-wise.
I couldn't do the math when they put on the 19 minutes extra. I was added to the 45 thinking, where are we? It's just no comprehension of space nor time when it came to try to come to the end of that first half for sure.
It was a pretty funny follow the guys online. I think Spires and those guys who were writing and stuff, just like, we're 45 and something. I don't really know. There's going to be a whistle at some point. I wanted to look it up. I get a chance to before this. I don't know. I mean, that 19 is going to throw it way off the mix, but have we set the most stoppage time minutes for any club this year? Because we've had some really aggressive due to injuries and the technical issues. This is the second time we've had a referee with issues. I feel like we have to be leading in stoppage minutes, which just takes years off all of our lives anyway, I'm sure.
It really does. It really does. And even the second half had 7 minutes.
Yeah.
I was just laughing. Really? Oh, man. Yeah, it was certainly interesting. And I will say, if it turned out to be a Bane type incident, I do think Adama would have definitely outran all the bombs on the field.
Yeah, he did punch them back and stuff, I think, and fought our corner.
Yeah.
He'd have been the Heinz Ward. I think that's
the movie. But ultimately, 2 great goals. João Moutinho, suddenly he went from not scoring for a year to now he's Kevin De Bruyne. And then Neves, one outside the box, which was just gorgeous. And that came right after we had let in an equalizer on a set piece for the first time in a long time. Other than that ridiculous free kick the week before, but I don't count that because that was an act of God.
Yeah, nothing but kudos on that one.
Yeah. Which was the more exciting goal for you, Justin? Was it Moutinho's or was it Neves's?
Traore. No, I'm kidding. Just because, like I said, they were both really good. I really like the lead up to Moutinho's. I think that back and forth he had to just put a foot on it was really nice. But I think just Neves, I'll say, just because it put us ahead late and I won't say it fully secured the 3, but it put us. It was a good answer back as well against a tough spot. The Brentford crowd gets it pretty good. I think they've got a real new stadium there, and they've shown out, especially after the way we were showing up real bad 2-0 the first time against them early in the season. To be able to go back ahead after giving the equalizer, I'd say Neves.
How about you, Paul?
Yeah, I'd agree with that because I think for both of the goals, both were really well crafted and it didn't look like we were panicking and we were putting the move together really well. But I think what Neves' goal showed, and even the performance onwards after we let the equaliser in, is that we had a certain level of confidence about us all game. And we didn't really seem unduly tested at all. And apart from picking the ball out the back of the net, I don't think Sarr had a genuine, real difficult save to make. So it seems like we had a little strut about ourselves and good confidence, which was nice. And even going into the game, knowing that Raul wasn't starting, I didn't feel it myself, or didn't really pick up on a sense of panic, that it was, well, okay, let's see what Fabio could do. And I think that, again, rightly, he needs lauding for this, is that it was really well tactically executed by Large, putting that extra body in the midfield. And what I liked for both goals was Dendoncker had some involvement. He was further up the pitch, and that's what you need. Obviously, it wasn't instrumental with an assist or anything like that, but he was in the positions where it mattered, and added to that, so were the wing backs. So if you were getting a Semedo who's making the assist, or Nuri who's on the edge of the box, that's the type of positions that these guys need to be picking up if we're playing 5 at the back. So for both goals, I really like the patterns of play, the plays involved, I think really well executed. But to have that equaliser, then come back and go back and take the lead, I think that's talking to how we're functioning as a team at the moment. It's really good to watch.
And you mentioned the build-up in Dendoncker. I have to give a shout out to Nelson Semedo, who has just, man, these last few games, he has been spectacular, and he played a really key role in both of those. That second goal, he had to rush to get that from crossing the byline, and really just a great pass, and then they were able to find Neves after a couple more nice little passes. But Semedo has been playing out of his mind. What do you think is the difference, Justin?
Time, maybe just cohesive time, right? We've had a pretty consistent group, and I think there's always something to just minutes played and getting used to it, which is why I never want Raul out, but it's not a bad thing for Silva. He's not getting, right, I'm not call it garbage minutes, 90 seconds at the end of a match. He's getting real time for that, and he's in 10 minutes, 15 minutes, and those type of things for him too. I think Semedo, just, it's time, and I think it's just cohesive with the rest of the group. And I'd echo Paul. I think that also comes back to your point of they never looked nervous. They seem to be pretty comfortable, and they made adjustments when they need to, when the score changed, when they need to press, when they need to come back after they took a lead, those type of things. It's all just that group being cohesive under Lodge.
Do you think Semedo's finally playing up to that price tag, Paul?
I think that's something that we always think when that money's spent, that he's going to hit the ground running straight away, that you sign this player for the best part of 30 million from Barcelona, and all of a sudden you plug him in and watch him go, and sometimes it doesn't work out like that. And we could find that if he closes out the rest of this season and goes on next, that we've got an absolute stud in that position. So yeah, a few more assists for definite. Let's see him on the score sheet as well. If he really closes out the season, he's going to be up there for Player of the Year now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I still think that's going to be hard to take from either Kilman or Neves or even Cody.
Or Jose Sa as well.
Yeah, or Jose Sa. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I tell you, it's going to be a really interesting PFA Player of the Year and Team of the Year for definite. That if Sa's not in the conversation for that as goalie, then something's up, and that's a shocking top 4 bias that I know we don't.
That was what I was going to mention next. Do you feel like he's earned so far? If the season ended now, do you think he will have earned the Golden Glove?
Personally, I do. Yeah,
I do too.
There's a toss-up between him and Ramsdale at Arsenal, but I think it's a more complete keeper that Sa is it.
I'm sure they'll give it to Ederson just because they always do.
Yeah.
But it would. I do like to see a lot of articles now across the pond that are highlighting Jose Sa. And it's Jose, not Jose. All these announcers are killing me.
Is Jose in Portuguese, though?
I don't know. It's probably... Let's ask Derek Ray. He probably has some weird old pronunciation for it.
It's like Jose Mourinho is not Jose Mourinho. But if he was Spanish, it would be. So
yeah, I don't know. It's Jose Sa to me. Silva didn't really do that much, but it was nice to see him get a start and be able to... It wasn't... When we saw Raul was out, we didn't go, oh, God. We saw Silva go in and go, Okay, let's see what he's got here. This is a good shot. Did you like that 1-2 pairing of him and Podence?
No, but I don't think it was. I don't think it was necessarily. I don't think it was necessarily a bad thing. I think it's not that good a fit for Podence. He's in form and he was contributing, and you could tell that he had something about him. But when he was dropping more deeper and picking the ball up and doing some more damage between the lines, that really left Silva isolated then. So that's where the dynamic shifts a little in that 5-3-2, is that we shore up the midfield, but it can leave those forward two and especially the central strikers somewhat isolated. And again, if he's still learning his craft, if he's still getting used to it, that's a fair amount to ask him to lead the line by himself. That being said, I'd probably favour Podence over Chara in that particular game as well. So it's swings and roundabouts who you're going to go with if you do switch the formation.
I don't know. Again, I'm just like, I don't like the reason why he got the minutes, but I like that he got the minutes so he can see. I think to your point, we all just felt like, okay, cool. Let's,
Yeah.
it's time. Let's see what's there. I'm with you, Paul. I think it's an interesting combination, the two of them up top, just because the drone joke about Podence, he can get pushed over pretty easily. And then to your point, Silva's out there and maybe his hair holds him up a little bit more if somebody tries to knock him over a little bit and stuff, but he's quick. But it's an interesting mix, but it was nice just to see that happen and work from there.
What I liked from Silva is that it seemed that he had some more confidence. He took a couple of shots from outside the box, and I'm happy for him to do that, because one of these games, one's going to fly in and it's going to be a real boost to the kid. So when he gets in those situations, I'm pretty good with the choices and the decisions he was making.
So what was the combined weight with those two? It had to be, what, 240 or under?
I think so, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Are we counting the hair? That's all I want to know.
Yeah.
The hair adds a couple.
That's good stuff. So Toddy Gomez came in again. It was interesting. Another solid performance, except for that, what the hell is this straight red that they tried to deliver out? I will say that was probably one of the only times it felt like the announcers were on Wolves' side, is when they were like, nah, that's not a red. Every other time, not so much. But how did you feel about Toddy Gomez's game, Justin?
I think he did fine. I think he held up on his own. I can't think of anything that really stands out. And unfortunately, the red is the big part that stands out. And that challenge, not a red, but still just an interesting challenge on there. And like they said, his spikes were down and he was on it enough and stuff. But I think he held out. I don't recall anything that I feel like that he was misplaying too much, unless I missed something. But again, that red's really what sticks out for me for him.
I don't think he missed a header the entire game. I'd love to go back and look at the statistics, but he just seemed to really boss those aerial duels, and it's a pretty tricky forward line to be coming up against. I know we've got the three centre backs, so the two forwards of theirs, but still, I think the pressure that they create and the pressure that he came under, he did a great job. And I even saw somewhat more of him looking to be progressive with the ball as well. And I think that's the next evolution that's got to happen for him, is for his confidence to build and build, so that he can start coming out from the back with it. He can start looking for some of those passes that Saiss finds, because we do see that's where a lot of the build-up play starts to come from down that side. So, man, if he adds that to his game, then we've got a stud on our hands, I'm sure of it.
Yeah, if I was looking for one criticism of him, I would say that his clearances are just going wherever. There's nowhere. He's just booting it out into the middle of nowhere. But he's a young kid. That's a skill that's going to be developed. I saw some stuff today that were like, oh, Roman Saiss, I don't think his spot's guaranteed when he comes back because of Toddy Gomez. I think that's crazy talk, Paul. Who would you go with? Would you keep with Toddy or go back to Saiss?
It's a real tricky decision, because it's very difficult to change that winning team. So, especially with the run that they're on and how the results have been generated, it would be, I'm not saying unfair, but it would be a really big call to switch him out based on that, based on the past games. The only probably area I could think of would be that he really wants to match the opposition with the players that we're putting out there. So I think when it comes to the opponent, if it was a big call and a big game, then Seiss will probably get the nod. And I think you add into that as well that I know it's only a small body of work, but Seiss does offer that threat in the opposition box as well that we haven't necessarily seen yet from Toady.
Who's on the team sheet for you, Justin?
I'm with Paul, the lead. I'm kind of tough to shake up a lineup right now. I think probably ultimately you're spot on where it's going to come down to lineup and matchups. I think that probably makes the most sense, but you don't want to fumble with it too much if you've got a thing going. You think of potential guys like Johnny or Neto and those guys too, and what they contribute to a club too. Like that probably may be a little bit different than Seiss. I don't know. Seiss has been such a staple for a while. And then also the amount of time he's had training under Lodge, right? Versus matches played and games, that type of stuff. And some of these other players. So just it's an interesting way thinking all those guys and how they may come back in. But I would say it's a matchup thing, as it's kind of Paul referenced.
Did you guys see that the two Brentford strikers were named to Team of the Week?
No. Really?
How a team that only gets one shot on goal between those two guys gets that? I don't know. Maybe Tony Gale picked the team.
Yeah, I think so. Jesus.
What am I missing here, Paul? Because I'm never one to be like, oh, officials are out or the announcers hate our team, blah, blah, blah. I really feel that way as a Wolves fan, though. And that's odd because I'm always with the sports background I have as far as sports writing, sports broadcasting. Yeah, maybe sometimes there's a little bit of bias towards a team. But for the most part, like national guys, I'm always like, I just think people make stuff up. Like with Joe Buck. You could ask both sides and they think he's against their team. Some of these announcers like legitimately hate Wolves is what it sounds like. I think you were the one that pointed out, did Fabio shag Tony Gale's daughter? Like what is going on? What am I missing here?
The list of the international commentary duos that we get, you can go down and for some reason I can go down that list and say he's going to be impartial, he's going to be impartial, he's going to be impartial. Then there's two or three that just think, oh, not him again. And Tony Gale's one for me, and I can't put my finger on it. I don't think there's any real beef from his playing days why he wouldn't like the Wolves for. I would possibly put it down to him maybe being a little out of touch, a little bit of a dinosaur, not really knowing the club too well. Very much a London bias. Again, Brentford playing London, and he's got those connections there and things like that. So I would probably put it down to that. He's not overly familiar with our club, and he favours those teams in and around him.
Am I right about this, Justin? Or am I just like making stuff up? Because you're a newer Wolves fan like me.
Yeah, no, I hear it too. Yeah, I don't know. It's weird. I can't remember which match it was. Several matches ago. I genuinely can't remember which one, but I think I turned off the sound just because I couldn't. Like it was so negative, and I was just like, "This is pretty ridiculous."
That may have been the one where they said if you score goals, there's a good, or if you don't give up any goals, there's a good chance you can win the game.
Thanks, guys. I'm curious, Paul. To your point, is that because I don't know enough? Is a London bias a big thing, like in the broadcasting for the sport?
Often they mentioned it from the press more than anything.
Yeah.
With the beat writers down there and the big publications that are based out of London, they typically got more share of the copy and stuff like that. Whether it extends to the broadcasting, I'm not sure. But I just find that increasingly with this batch that we've got now, there's a distinct difference between picking up on the guys that have recently finished playing and those that you're going back pretty much 20 years now. So I think that factors into it as well. And really, the game that Tony Gale was playing is night and day different compared to this one. So that's what I find some fault with, that he's offering his opinions, but does he really know what's going on or what these players are coming up against and stuff nowadays? So.
And then those suckers during the drone thing, they just left. They just up and left us with the screen. I was trying to think of what kind of scenario would cause like American broadcasters to just up and leave. And all I could think would be like, if one of them made a racial slur, he may be forced to leave. But other than that, if there's a rain delay or something, they're always sitting there, even going to the halftime show or something. And nope, they just, all right, we'll be back. went to go get a pint or something.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking too. Yeah. Brentford's gonna be real happy in their possession sale. They had extra time.
It's funny you mentioned the press, Paul, because I used to be in the press for a sports writer, and a lot of sports writers, they try and act like they don't have fandom, but there is a little bit of fandom in there. I had fandom for my local teams. I would like to see them do well. You weren't always outward about it. And there are some American newspaper writers that probably hate covering their team or hate the people, and really you can tell about it. I think it's funny following UK writers because they are the biggest fan. Like Tim Spears and Liam Keane, man, those guys are so fun to follow because they have no problems. They're like, yep, we're homers. What are you going to do about it? And I could never see like open, I'm going to guess there's no cheering in the press box type rule over in England, right?
I don't think you're jumping up and down so much. Probably what you've got in England is a little, obviously it's on a smaller scale, and you've probably got those two sets of commentary teams, or three or four really if it's an EPL game. So when Mikey Burrows, Tomo, Chris Uwalumo are over there, they're probably making a fair amount of noise, but I don't think they're
as they should.
I don't think they're jumping up and down in celebration. So you've probably got that etiquette to stick by in the UK as well.
They get pretty riled up, like at least vocally. Yeah, to your point, I don't know physically what it looks like, but vocally, like it's pretty impressive.
Yeah, because for us, we live in Houston, and I would go to some Houston Texans games, and if there was ever a big play, and there'd be like, what? Like start to get a commotion in the press box, they'd be like, no cheering in the press box. And there are people that have been threatened to be kicked out or have been kicked out. I saw somebody at a high school game kicked out of the press box for cheering. That's a legitimate thing in the US. Like that is a big no-no. And so to see the writers, it cracks me up, and I love it too. I really do.
Yeah.
Gets a feel of the fan out there. So who would be your man of the match as we wrap up this recap? I'll let you start, Justin.
I would go Semedo. I think the way he played, his buildup of the two, it's a great point. He saved that ball off the line and set up the second. I would say him.
Paul?
Moutinho, goal and an assist, and fantastic finish of the goal as well.
And here I thought I was going to be thinking outside the box saying Nelson Semedo, and then Justin. I agree. I mean, really, you can't go wrong with several guys.
Yeah.
I mean,
I throw Saw in there. He wasn't challenged, but he knocked that Brentford player over. So that's
two of them.
Two of them, yeah. That earns a partial any kind of yellow for time.
I know one thing. That is the dude who you want to go Black Friday shopping with. You go, Jose Sa, we need to get to the flat screens. Go.
He's got a good reach, too.
All behind it.
So.
I try to discover a little something to make me sweeter. Oh, baby, refrain from breaking my heart. I'm so in love with you. I'll be forever blue. That you give me no reason why you make me work so hard.
Well, it's an international weekend, so no UEFA games, but those competing within FIFA are, so that means domestic top flight games can't be played at the same time in conflict. It involves a lot of U.S. guys, a lot of CONCACAF. This is a really big week for that. So Raul Jimenez is with Mexico. We'll see if he actually plays because of the calf injury. I know they were going to evaluate it. But, Paul, when do the playoffs or the little mini tournaments for UEFA start up?
So they got to do the World Cup playoffs first.
Yeah.
I think, is that March? I think so, around about that time.
And that's going to be really interesting for us because only one of Italy and Portugal can make it through. And I still contend if Portugal doesn't make the World Cup, that's not the worst thing to happen to Wolves. Give our guys
a break.
Get a little extra practice time in. Everybody else is coming right around Boxing Day all worn out, and Wolves are fresh and ready to go. I always like cheering on the guys, but I won't be upset if the Italians win. Don't tell Miss Neto you didn't hear that. So, with that in mind that we don't have any games to preview, we're going to talk the fun stuff, the transfer window. All right, Justin. I was a little worried that tonight I was going to have to give my eulogy on Adama's Wolves career. Or did we see the last Adama game, which would have been perfect to end on a goal?
I see. I'm torn about that. I'm not going to lie, because yes, it'd have been perfect to leave on it, but then that'd have been 2-2 for him. And then he's going to get hot and go to Spurs and go nuts, which just rubs it in. I think, Paul, you said a long time ago, if he leaves, great, just don't stay in the Premier League. Cool, go play the other league. Shoot, man, when they scored, it really felt right. Even all the writers, everybody said that, the way they celebrated, the stuff lost, like all of that very much felt like it was closing a book on him there. And then I've read way too many things today, like I've read in the past, that are like, he is, but they're coming to an agreement. They want more. We know they turned down the offer. There was somebody that reported today that was like, it's off, and check my sources. I don't know who that guy was. I don't know enough. You know what I mean? So yeah, yes, like, check my sources, what he said. I do. I feel like it, especially when I didn't see him in the starting lineup, which I iffy on that, but with Raul out to that point, I was a little surprised when he did come on, because again, I know you got to be real dicey with that. So that, I don't know. Lodge is going to, I think there's a courtesy there, right? I don't know well enough to know, but I think there's a courtesy there that you don't play the guy if he's about to transfer out, all that kind of stuff. But also, hey, he's trying to get 3 points. You got to try and win the match. But I don't know. So I was a little surprised, but yeah, I think we're done, unfortunately. And that sucks. Here's my thing again. Like I said, if they want him that bad, man, just make him throw the truck bank the truck up to the building. And I don't know, I'm sure there's a lot to it that I don't know, but make them really go for it at that point, and then let's take it. Try and get what we can get out of it. And if they don't want to do it, then, we go from there. But yeah. Sorry, it's a long way to say, yeah, I think he is done now.
Yeah. Paul, can we put to rest the people that are like, oh, he's checked out and he doesn't even care about playing for Wolves? Because when he made that goal, like, just the excitement of him running to the dugout, that to me doesn't look like a guy who is miserable playing for Wolves. Like, I thought that was a great moment. Everybody ran to him. Him and Lodge had a really cool moment. Like, I feel I got to defend Adama, of course, because I'm an Adama stan, but the people there are like, oh, he doesn't want to be here, let him go. I don't know if that's necessarily the case. I think if Wolves paid him, he'd stay. What do you think?
Yeah, potentially, but it's so it turns that into a complete business decision then, because if he's commanding to be the highest paid player, or what we're saying, if Moutinho's on 100k and Raul's around about that figure, is he wanting 120k a week or more, or what's that?
Like,
yeah, and we bring it back to this, but that comes down to the X's and O's of his output. So output and an overall contribution to the team. Do you pay someone that weekly wage who isn't, again, a guaranteed starter in your first 11? That he's awesome and on form, he is, but it's got to be the right combination of players alongside him, got to be the right formation. All of that goes into it. If you would do pros and cons off of all of that, for me, it's shake his hand and say thanks for what you've done. Go and go and get your paycheck elsewhere, and we all leave happy.
I will
But
say,
think
Aubameyang for Arsenal, he's getting paid $350K a week to not play.
yeah. So
Justin's face.
Yeah.
That was my face too when I read that. I was like, good
Yeah.
God.
Yeah. Jeez.
but Arsenal aren't afraid of just giving money left, right, and centre to players that don't play anyway. So nothing new there. But I think what it's coming down to with Traore, that the inevitable is going to happen. We want 30. They've bid 20. Soon as they settle on 25, however it comes, if it's 20 million at the end of a obligated loan for 5 as a loan fee, then that's the deal. I think looking back now, it's exactly the same that happened in the summer. If those pieces have fallen in the right way, he'd have gone then. I could see exactly the same happening this winter, that if it does happen, he goes. If he doesn't, he'll probably see it out till the summer, and obviously his fee goes down. But will that benefit? We're not gonna lose from him being around, I don't think, but for the last few months of the season. So
But how much do you think his fee would go down if we just held him and said, okay, look, we're making a run to Europe. Okay. We'll let you go in the summer. That's fine. I gotta feel like is it really worth that extra $2 million? I can't imagine him going for that much under 20 million in the summer, even though he's only got a year left on his contract. And ultimately, we sold Doc to Spurs for 15 million. And Daniel James went for 27 million. Daniel James is horrible.
yeah, it all comes
No
down
offense,
to
Mrs. James, if you're listening.
that contract length is the issue here. That if he does stay to the summer, that's a year away. And then I probably think then you're in the ballpark of 15, 18. Whereas at the moment, if it's 25 with 18 months to go, that probably means it would be 25, 30 with 2 years to go. 3-year contract is probably 30 to 40. So these numbers banded about, I don't think they're. I think we're pretty much in the ballpark for a fair valuation of what he's worth. I think if he was on a fat 4 or 5 year contract, you're talking about 50 million, and the contract length he's at now, I think that we're in the ballpark for what we could be commanding.
If they want him that bad too, we're one behind them in the table. They're fighting for Europe. Spurs' expectation is Europe plus champions. I mean, that type of thing from them. So I don't know. Like maybe that is the difference in the money too right now versus a summer transfer. It's something to the fact what they're trying to make a push for the back half. I don't know.
So if we include add-ons, okay, and I set the over-under line at 23 million pounds, counting add-ons now, do you have over or under on that?
I have slightly over.
Slightly over?
Yeah.
Yeah, I would say over that too.
I hope so. For as stingy as Jeff she gets on buying guys, where it's I have my evaluation and that's it, I hope he doesn't cave to Spurs here. Or do some stupid thing like with Jota where it's, oh, we'll spread this out over 15 years. Yeah, this is fine for no interest. No. Give me the money now. Show me the money.
That's the point, right? That's been the whole thing all year that we've heard from them is that they need cash investment to a point. That's the benefit to doing this with a player like him. I was glad to see they balked at the 15 and were like, yeah, get out of here kind of thing. Come on. They'll be like, yeah, I don't know. If I'm I'm insulted by that and say, all right, now do something. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I don't know.
I saw somebody that was like, go offer 5 million pounds for Harry Kane.
Kane.
So with the Adama news on what's going, there's more rumblings. Get my hopes up again. Renato Sanchez, who told Lil, I'm not negotiating a contract anymore. And then today he said, I'm ready to leave. There's a team out there that wants me. I'm not going to say who the team is, and we'll see what happens. Immediately, Wolves Twitter, engage. Are we that team, or do you think it's Arsenal or Milan? Because to me, I think it's one of those three, unless Liverpool is sneaking in. Paul, who is it? Are we the lucky suitor? Is he going to give us the red rose at the end?
I think there's no smoke without fire, and just when you lay all those cards out, it makes complete sense that if Traore goes, then he's lined up, and one door closes, and another one opens, and I think there's all those different plates spinning about valuations and fees and agreements of the structuring the deal and everything in the right way. And I would say again, there's nothing at all different from the summer. That if Troy had gone last minute in the summer, Sanchez would have come in, and I think that played out with when he got mooted right at the end that we're in for him. Maybe something fell down on the Traore side that held up all those domino pieces falling. I'm firmly in the camp that if Traore goes, then within a day or two that Sanchez comes to the door.
What do you think, Justin?
Yeah, it makes sense to me. Do we just tell the Spurs to send the check over there? Is that how it's going to just bypass us? Yeah, there's so much talk about it that you just got to be to Paul's point. There's got to be something behind it. These things get tricky too because health evaluations, all that kind of stuff too. Those checks, so there's sticking points everywhere. But I don't know. I'll say yes. I don't know any better, so I'll say yes. I think there's a chance there if that happens.
I really would have liked to have seen Adama and Sanchez play together because I think that could have had the potential to be spectacular. And we're like huge Adama fans, Justin, so this is mostly for us. Are we okay with Adama being sold if Sanchez is the one that comes in?
Yeah,
that's kind of what I
know.
Like
yeah,
Sanchez,
I think it's obviously a quality player coming in. I'm still, again, I'm a stan, so I'm going to be biased like we are. Like, there's still so much Adama brings into a match, right? Like, even he can have such an impact in 3 minutes of a match that changes the complexion of a match. And can Sanchez do that? Maybe. I to be honest, I've not watched enough, don't know enough, just personally. But I know Adama can do that. And yeah, unfortunately, he's going to kick it 10 feet over the post, or he's gonna make it out pass, but he's also gonna go knock a guy over, be able to put the ball in the middle for somebody else to score, or be able to finish on his own. And I think just the way he makes another team have to make adjustments to control him is why I appreciate the way he plays so much. And so I think Sanchez would be a great add. I think there's obviously a ton of quality to the club, and people much smarter than me know what the heck they're doing if that's what happens. But does he have that kind of impact immediately into a match? I don't know, and that'll be interesting to see. So
how about you, Paul? Would you be happy if that's what happens? Adama leaves and Sanchez comes in with that money?
I would be. I think when you're looking at the sum of all the parts and versus individual contributions, that bringing in Sanchez would allow for a ton more flexibility, formation-wise, lineup-wise. I think we're restricted with what we can do with Traore, where bringing in Sanchez opens up a number of different possibilities that I think could bring the best out in other players as well.
I think it would make the fan base more comfortable if that's what actually would happen. Because if we lose Traore and that doesn't happen, people are going to go real nuts.
That was going to be my next question. Yeah. What will be the reaction if Adama leaves and they get nobody, or the person they get is like a U23 player? Like, can Jeff Shee even show his face around town until the summer?
For as good as they're doing at the moment, I still say it's a no. Yeah. And it has to be put in those blinkers of what's happening right at this very moment. If you lose a player of Traore's ability and what he offers and don't even replace him, what does that even talk to when it comes to your aspirations for the rest of the season, where we are genuine challenges for European place now?
Absolutely.
The league table has really started to break itself out. And to a large extent, you could probably even stretch it as far to say that even the teams below us maybe aren't even in that European consideration, that it's us, West Ham, Man United, Leicester. Arsenal, Spurs. I'd say Leicester. For me at the moment, if I was just to take a snapshot of the table, I'd say Leicester aren't in it. And case in point, on Sundays, they don't beat Brighton at home. So
Yeah.
those are the games that you win. And if you're in this contention, and we'll come on to it in a bit, there's a heck of a long way to go. But if I was just to look at it now, that's the competition we're in. We're in a battle for a top 6 spot,
Mm-hmm.
I think.
Yeah.
And to do anything counter to that and not balance it somehow, if the inevitable happens, I think would be a real slap in the face to Bruno and the fans, certainly.
I mean, they have, and to your point, it's very much in their control. 'Cause the next 4 matches are those clubs like that. It gauntlet-ish, right? We seem to hit those. I'll call them top flight, whatever you want to call them, top of the table teams in a row sequentially, just thanks scheduling team. But yeah, if we lose him and go into some of those matches, it's going to be interesting. Again, it's not. You don't want to break it up too much, but I think just from a momentum, even in that locker room, to lose Adama, and from a club perspective, what are we doing? Here's our chance to really push, see where we're sitting. We're 4 back of the top 4, I think is top 4, top 5, and it's just we're right there to make a push at something. It's just on them to do it. So some type of move that's not a U23, I think, has to be made, to your point. Otherwise, she's gonna have to go to hide it in a basement for a while.
That's a great point about the players. So I remember when the Houston Astros were going for that first World Series, they didn't make a move at the trade deadline, and Dallas Keuchel came out and was furious and was like, we're not showing any type of drive here. We got a chance, and we're not showing that ambition. Then they went ahead because of the second trading deadline and got Justin Verlander. I kind of think too, would the players be okay if just no moves and Adama stayed? Would they think, okay, we have enough? Or would they be okay if Adama goes out and Sanchez comes in? That would be great to find out how the players are really thinking. If they'd be as candid as Lodge is, which the only one I could think that would be
Cody.
because I think he's built up enough cred where he could call out Fosun.
Yeah, to my opinion, I think you trust what you've got if Adama stays, right? They all hear it every day and say, okay, this is the team. Let's make the push. And
Yeah.
if they make the change, then the club did something they thought was a way to continue that push. But if it's nothing, I think you take it the same way as you were talking your example with the Astros. Like, you were trying, man. Like, we're here up the top, first year manager, and a lot of changes and a lot of things. We're trying to learn a new way to play, and we're here sitting on the top half, and we've got a chance to make a really nice season out of this, and we're not doing anything to invest. We just lost one of the players who can make an impact into a game. Yeah.
Paul, do we run the risk of losing Lodge if they sell off Adama and don't bring anybody in?
I don't think it'd be that severe at this point in the season. I think they could.
I guess I mean after the season. Do you think he'd
potentially? Again, it depends how it all shakes out. But if he comes in and again his first year coaching in the EPL, that even a top half finish is a tremendous achievement, really. So if it's anything above there, is he potentially going to have some suitors, or is this somehow expected and it's all part of a grander scheme that he's talked about previously and mentioned about, let me see where this team is in 18 months, 2 years time, whether that's at the back of his mind and we're out the loop in terms of that discussion and what he was originally brought in for. So I don't think it's going to be a worry potentially that he'd walk or anything like that, but I could see some bigger clubs maybe looking in that direction to see that he could be potential to come in elsewhere.
He wasn't sold for a team that wasn't going to do anything. You don't take that position to say, hey, we're going to sit here and be complacent and hope we win with what we got. It's time to evaluate. But we talked about that a lot. I think a lot over the summer, and we came on, is like 2 or 3 big moves didn't happen. And so here we are again. And the one that's been staring us in the face all along, at least one of these moves that is a landmark move under his leadership to a point, is there, and it's sitting there again. I think there's got to be a level of frustration that occurs to somebody like that for what he was promised when he came on board.
I mean, look at Benfica. He did well. He had Felix, and then they sold him off and didn't really use that money. And then when they struggled a little bit, he was the scapegoat. He doesn't want to have that again. Look, it kept him from getting a job for a year and a half, which clearly was undeserved. I think we've seen, like, the dude's a great coach.
Yeah.
Great coach. Okay, you guys mentioned the gauntlet coming up. So we start off with the FA Cup tie against Norwich. I feel pretty confident about that, even though Norwich has looked a little bit better recently. And then it happens. Arsenal at home, Spurs away, Leicester at home, West Ham away. Those 4 games, what is the amount of points that you want to see? You would feel like this would be, I'd consider it successful, and what's realistic, you think, for the points?
I knew you were going to ask this. I'm going to get greedy and say 8.
8?
Yeah, I get greedy and say 8. A couple of wins and a couple of draws in there.
Mm-hmm.
Realistic, I think if I'm happy we come out of those 4, 2 home, 2 aways. And of course we play Spurs, so all the Adama stuff too. It's just funny how sports work out that way. If we come out of that with 5.
5, and you
5,
consider it?
I would be happy with that. I think 8 through the roof. If we come out of that with 5, I'm okay.
Yeah. How about you, Paul?
I've just done that same arithmetic of jotting them down points wise. I'm exactly the same. 8 would be unbelievable. 5 would be a pretty good return considering the opposition and where we've got to play them.
I would be a top end. I think if they got 7, I'd be happy. That's tough to ask not to lose any of those 4. And what's funny is the one I could see them losing would be Leicester at home. Spurs, I don't know. Arsenal, I feel confident with them at home. The big game has got to be West Ham. That is the game where we have to get 3 points. 1 would be okay. If they lose to West Ham, that puts a severe hurt to our Europe chances. You agree, Paul?
I do. And those games are what turns into the 6-pointers of you're battling relegation, you beat your rival. It's not just because you got the 3 points, but you stop the opposition from getting 3. So I think that could equally play out in this battle that we're going to face, that those points are going to be crucial against West Ham. And probably same goes with Leicester as well, that if Leicester thinking they can rock up at Molineux and beat us and suddenly there's a 3-point swing there, then that puts them back in the conversation as well for the 7th spot and higher. So out of those 4, those 2 for me are the real crucial ones.
If we only get 3 or 4 points, do you feel like top 7 we'd still have a shot based on getting through this gauntlet and then still some of the other matches that we have left? Because remember, we also have a game against Watford in hand.
And the Arsenal away game.
And the Arsenal game, yeah.
So it's, whilst we say is this defining part of the season, it's crazy that it's still only February that we're talking about. And it was only really this weekend that dawned on me, what are we, like 36 points? And I was, we're only 4 more till we save. So you do have to slap yourself around the face sometimes and think, shit, we're deliberating what run we're going to go to get onto Europe rather than looking over our shoulders. So a lot can happen between now and then. While it is an important month, I think as long as we're able to retain our performance level, that 3 or 4 points may not be the end of the world.
It takes it out of our hands a little bit, as I would say at that point. Then we're going to rely on some other clubs doing some other things, losing a match they probably shouldn't, or drawing a match they probably wouldn't, something to that effect, because
like Southampton, Man City.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, gosh. But exactly that type of stuff. That's when we're relying on those other things. And you never want it to be out of your hands to a point. But boy, I looked ahead, I was slipping and saw like what the next 4 after that. And if we could somehow come out of that in that 5-6 range that we're happy with, what momentum we could have going into those next 4 to do something real special in March. I'm jumping way ahead and being crazy about this, but you just get excited about that if you can get through and actually get some points out of those.
Yeah.
You know,
I am glad that I haven't had to listen to people saying the R word since like October. That's been nice. And yes, Andrew Smith, I am talking about you. Love you. Paul, any no stupid questions this week?
Yes, the part of the show dedicated to you, our listener. Get in touch on the socials or by emailing hello@wholelotofwolves.com and ask us anything you'd like about the team, the club, Wolverhampton. We'll read it out and answer it during this part of the show. So first up is Hullabaloo on Twitter asking, if you're the grand poobah of international football, what rule would you change? In brackets, ditching VAR does not count. My answer is based off of the reversed Traore goal from Saturday.
Paul, you want to go first with that? Here's my question. Okay, when we say international football, are we talking about all the leagues or straight just nations teams?
So
I assume we're talking about all the leagues, right?
I'd say let's keep it to top flight and international, Champions League, all of that. And with that, I would probably, whilst it's not a rule change per se, it's a tweak, and I'd go to Hullabaloo's point around Traore's goal that offside should favour the attacker in those situations, whether it's clear daylight or some real obvious difference. When they're talking about clear and obvious, let's have it for offside, that at least he's a foot apart from the defender. That's offside, something along those lines. And I probably would switch it around a little there, and we don't want to tweak with the game on such a level that what we're watching each week, it needs to have that consistency all the way down the pyramid to what the kids are starting out with now they're playing on a Saturday or Sunday morning. So when it comes to stuff like that, you know, those kids aren't going to be playing with a microscope of looking for these minute lines. It's down to the assistant referee to making a judgment call, and that's what it should be for me. If it's clear and obvious and the dude is a foot off, but somehow the angle that the assistant was on made his vision skew and he looked on from his view, whatever, just favour the attacker a little more and make it more obvious that way. And as an extension to that, if we do have to keep VAR, then let's have some more accountability, more transparency. Let's hear what they're saying on that microphone so we know the decision making that's going on. Certainly, if you saw that penalty decision Liverpool got on Sunday against Palace, I would love to know the back and forth of that conversation, because something wasn't right with that one. So let's learn from our friends from rugby and their refereeing, that you hear that conversation.
I like that. I really like that point, because you're thinking at a tactical disadvantage to the defender that makes the difference whether somebody scores or has an opportunity to score. And I think that's really fair. It's a really good question. I think, because I've been having a longer think about it, I really like that. I think I would lean into that. And I know we're not talking about VAR, but I always call back to something that like Nuno actually said, was like he hated it after goal because it broke the momentum, like the crowd, the players, the support, and it stops the match, it stops momentum, it stops the excitement. I don't know where, and again, I'm not talking about VR, but talking about it, like the way to fix it, the way that's done in that process, and maybe that's part of it too, right? The tactical advantage, maybe it all rolls into there a little bit, but I watching the game more and learning it more as I do, like I do think that is a big thing. It's for all intents and purposes, probably poor analogy, but other sports, hitting a home run and calling it back, scoring a touchdown, calling it breaks that up. And it's so much more in football, like in the sport, that it's such a big deal and it gets everybody so into it, that if there's a better way to do that, that it doesn't buzzkill the moment to a point, either the moment doesn't happen or the moment's legit. I think that's a big impact to the game that I think is a player but fan experience that I think could enhance or prevent that buzzkill within watching a match. I don't know, something like that, I guess is where I'd go.
One other, I think, byproduct of a rule change like that would be Americans would become more interested. Because I really think that's one thing. Americans are used to, in our sports, the rules favor the offensive player. And I think that's always been the problem with soccer, is the rules definitely favor the defensive player. And Americans have an issue with that. So I do think that could be one of the byproducts is if scoring goes a little bit up, suddenly the soccer is boring crowd is losing some of their ground to stand on. Paul, this is probably going to make you have a heart attack, but my rule change, I want a playoff. I want an end of the year playoff because they were talking Man City's draw. Okay, well, Liverpool's got a couple games in hand, and then if they beat Man City, then then they're only 3 points. That's a lot of ifs, man. I want to see, even if it's just 4 teams. But I could see 6 teams give top 2 a bye, even do reverse fixtures. I'm okay with that. A home and away, 2 legs with the we do it in Champions League. We do it in Europa. Why can't we do it for the EPL? And you'd still, even if you just want to have only one team, quote unquote, get a bye to reward them. Paul's, oh my God, shut up.
I'm very curious Paul's take on this. Yeah.
Like fucking Americans coming over and doing our game.
I do it.
I was just going to say that's such an American thing to say, Josh.
I will bring it all the way back to, and this goes for and counter to the argument. That was exactly what was said. Probably, I don't even know how long they've been around. Let me think. At least 20 years, probably longer. That playoffs for the remaining promotion spots in the leagues underneath the EPL. When they first came in, it was like, oh, what is all this? This isn't fair. It's you rewarding a team that may have just scraped in there, and all of a sudden they go on a run and they've clawed from 6th, and now they're going up. So on the one hand, it talks to that element of the season that it's attritional and it's a battle and it's across all of those 38 games, rather than just focusing in on a month of soccer where who knows what their squad was like at the start of the season versus what it is now, and all of those that factor into it. So in the top flight, I think they purposely probably designed the Premier League not to ever go down that route because they wanted it to be more competitive, that you could have probably 5 or 6 teams, maybe 7 or 8 genuine title contenders. That's never really happened. So maybe unless that changes, there's some scope for it. I won't.
My point right there.
Yeah, I won't dismiss it altogether based on that, but it's just a complete culture shock to an Englishman that's been raised on that beautiful way.
I know, and I'm probably going to get so much crap for it on Twitter, I'm sure. Go ahead and use that as a soundbite. It's a stupid American.
To your point,
look,
though,
I mean,
oh, sorry.
Anybody that watched the NFL games this weekend, that was so
Exactly.
exciting.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Watch
yeah.
the World Cup. Boy, that gets so excited. Champions League. Why do we like Champions League? Because it's the 4 best teams going against each other. I don't see why we can't do that in the league, but okay.
So the sport has already proven it works. That's the thing to me. Like
Exactly.
I think of like NASCAR, which is trying to wedge in a playoff because they used to do the season haul and you get to the last 5 races and it doesn't matter. They've tried to build a playoff, but this is a sport that's, and sorry, Paul, don't shoot me there, but I'm saying I like Josh's idea because it's a sport that's proven this format can work and it's exciting and people get invested in it. The other part to that, I love that the point of the season is to build towards the performance whole season holistically. So I would almost lean into that, and your top 4 that playoff aside still go to Champions League. Your others go to Europe. It doesn't change where they are promoted because they over the length of the entire season they've earned that. But then to determine the champion, then it is a seeded basis.
And give them a regular season trophy. We do that in college basketball. Yeah, we do that. Right, and I don't want something like MLS, which has 7 or 8 teams each conference make it. That's too much.
No.
I think if you kept it at 4, you could honestly sell me on a 3-team playoff and go 2 and 3 play each other home and away. The winner plays the 1 seed.
Here's the problem, Josh. As a baseball guy, baseball used to be the pennant winner from each league, and now we have 32 baseball teams in the playoffs. Yeah. Once they realize how much money is there for playoffs.
Oh, yeah.
That's going to happen. You could start with 4. Look at college football. The fact it hasn't expanded to a 64-team football tournament is amazing, just with as much money's there. So that's going to happen eventually. That's the downside. I could see this. I'm with you. Fix it at 4, fix it at 6, whatever that is. And that's the way it has to be. You're not going to add any more to it, but we know that's not going to happen with these owners.
Yeah,
Like,
and you
gonna...
could find a way to reward. You could even make it, okay, you're going to play home and away fixtures, except if you're the top seed, you get both games at home. There's ways to reward, to do a tournament while giving that regular season winner a significant advantage.
Yeah.
Yeah. Have I convinced you, Paul? I don't think I have.
I'm not discounting it.
I will take that as a victory for Justin and Josh. Woo!
Here's one thing I'd say is I really believe, and Paul may disagree, and Josh, I don't know. I feel like soccer is a sport where on a high percentage consistently, the better team wins versus other sports where it really, somebody can have a bad day, somebody can have a good day, and it could still happen here. But I think historically, statistically, the team that is better will win. Minus
especially
the
if it's reverse fixtures.
Yeah, agreed. Especially, I don't know. So I think that's one of the things is you turn on a match with City the last couple of years or Liverpool, and you watch for fun. And non-Wolves aside, pretty sure they're going to win that. You just know they're the better club, and if they play to even remotely the level that they are, and kudos to that team. That's the organization and the team, and kudos to that. And I feel like that's a pretty standard thing across the board in the sport. What makes it fun is when that doesn't happen. And there's Leicester winning Sheffield, those type of things a couple years ago, that you get that curveball, which makes it really fun, keeps it exciting. But I don't know. I think that also plays into the fact of the teams that are at the top there deserve to be there, and probably that top one or two will probably to your point with the reverse, come out of that aggregate positive and move on and win.
This will be interesting to see the feedback on this, Paul. I think we're about to find out how many of our listeners are American and how many are not.
I'll put it out there as a vote, I think, and we'll compare that to our listenership across the globe.
I like it. I bet Miss Neto's on my side.
Next one is Wolfman Jeff, Soccer in South on Twitter. He asks, will Wolves upload their long-term loans like Bonatino and Catrone to give more wiggle room in the new FIFA cap, or will we do more EFL loans? So I think this is a really interesting point, and it really shows you the level of detail that they've started to look into this somewhat dark art of loan players and sister clubs and all of that. And it's interesting the moves that they're making to try and make it more fair. But I think here, and we're probably one of the clubs that are ahead of it somewhat, that we've maybe known that something along these lines was coming, so they've acted accordingly. I think for our particular case, we will probably get more signings to the likes of Grasshoppers direct, that then we buy in from them, and we're not buying them first and going. We're not buying them first and then loaning them to them. They're buying them and then we're buying them off them.
I keep forgetting Catrone still technically ours. I don't even know. I haven't looked up. What's he done this year? Besides out.
Often on the bench, 2 or 3 goals, I think, at the very most.
I was wondering if we were going to, I think it's a good question, because I was wondering about that, because I was reading some of that stuff this too. So I'm glad he asked that. I don't know. I think, to your point, I think, yeah, when you look at it that way, we probably thought of that through maybe a little bit, or saw the writing on the wall that was coming. So kudos, I guess. I'm just curious how, and Paul, you may know, like how that may change the sport and the way things are done that way. So clubs do have to maneuver like that. I guess I'm curious, and I know you said in your points too, but I'm just how that affects, I don't know, from the top down, honestly, even it's going to affect everybody. So it's interesting.
I think it will affect those big 6 clubs that, buy these potential guys. And one of the after effects could be it keeps teams like us from having to spend so much on a Fabio Silva before somebody else snags him up. Now, the price could be a little bit lower because these teams don't have the ability to just sign him and then throw him on the bench and then loan him out for a year and see what happens.
I think it goes to some of the examples like Man City. How many clubs are under their umbrella around the world? It's at least 6, I think. it goes to that footprint and casting such a wide net that you could pick up a player that New York signed, that they identify the potential, just park him there for 2 years, and then all of a sudden that's the transfer. And that's still going to be like millions less than what it would have been if that said player had gone to New York and then gone to your lesser known European team. It's not much of a gamble if it goes that route. If it doesn't come off, it doesn't come off. They've not wasted 20-30 million on those types of players. So there's all of those dynamics into it. It's not easy by any stretch.
Chelsea's another great example. They have so many guys that they're just like, yeah, we'll loan them here, loan them here, loan them here.
It is when you get to that stage and you can start to put out their loan players in what would be a really competitive first 11 team. That's when you've got there's something not quite right, where Conor Gallagher's probably Crystal Palace's best player this season. Yeah, he's someone.
Yeah, that's a great example right there. I think that's like, players like that are the reason this rule's going to be put in place. Players like Donny van de Beek. Guys like that.
Next up, finally, it's Alex Petterkas asks on Twitter about a pre-game and post-game experience at the Molineux, because he's got tickets for the match Arsenal. Yeah, next month, February the 10th, secured.
That's awesome.
So Alex is going over to watch. So I'm sure you will have a blast. I will regale you with my somewhat dated knowledge, so we'll probably get some input from our followers on social media to add. But what I'd say is you'll probably be in or around Wolverhampton anyway, stay in. So get into the city centre pretty early. The benefit of the Molineux, that it is a city centre venue, so you won't have difficulties finding a pub to socialise in. There's plenty around the ground that are good to go into. It's always busy, always popular pre-match for a drink. So there's that to do. Out of all of them, I'd probably say at least check out the Great Western, which is by the railway station, because that's a very traditional pub. A nice proper pint of beer. You get a cob, which is like a bun that would be.
What is on the bun sandwich?
So you can have, like, it's pretty much like cheese and onion, just really basic, but a real thick, crusty cob. So yeah, more carbs than you can shake a stick at if you're watching your weight.
I see now why you moved to Texas, Paul.
So there's that. You ain't got to worry about away fans too much. They're designated a pub not far from the railway station, so they've got their own place to go to, so you don't have to worry about that. I'd go there nice and early. I'd take in a pub, and then I'd get to the ground and check out the Worldwide Walls Lounge. So that's a dedicated space for fans who have travelled either domestically or internationally to go in there. They've got a bar set up, so you can have a drink in there, meet other fans likewise who may have travelled. Obviously there's big contingents that go over there from Ireland and Scandinavia on a match by match basis, so it's pretty good in there. And then
you have to pay extra to get in there?
No, it's just on a first come first serve basis, so as long as you're there within plenty of time, you can go on in. And that's a real good feature that the club have done, is to make out that facility for our section of the fan base. I think it's a really nice gesture, so kudos to the club there. And then probably afterwards, again, same go, stick around the town after a win. It's awesome, great atmosphere, and you'll chat to people and you'll talk about the game. And then for me personally, huge fan of Indian food, and there's a bunch of great Indian restaurants. I think we mentioned some previously, but you could definitely get a recommendation to go for a nice curry after the game.
Excellent. I can't wait. I really can't. COVID needs to be done with, so.
Second that.
Justin, how do we get a hold of you?
Thanks, guys. As always, tennwolves@gmail.com. Reach out. We've had a couple more folks, and even some folks who've recently joined that we're making a trip over the holidays and stuff too. We're going over there and stuff too. So yeah, if you're in Tennessee area, tennwolves@gmail. Reach out. Happy to talk to you.
And that brings this week's show to an end. So please continue to do what you can in terms of liking, subscribing, and reviewing Whole Lot of Wolves on the podcast platform that you find yourself listening to us on. So between games, we are active on Twitter and Facebook, or email. Again, it is hello@wholelotofwolves.com. So we'll be back next week once the transfer window closes to sum it all up and then preview that Norwich FA Cup game. So in the meantime, up the Wolves and down with drones.